Here we go. Give a giant FinOps X Europe welcome to our speakers, Patel and Galan!
Yeah, good. All right, so welcome everyone. We're excited to be here, thrilled to be here. Today we're gonna discuss, it's not a technical discussion. The only time that you'll hear me say the words Gen AI was just now. I think, as you know, first of all, introduction, I guess, very important. I am Carlos Galan. I'm the Cloud FinOps lead for JustEatTakeaway.com. And with me, I have the great, the one and only, Hitesh Patel.
Hi, everyone.
Who is the Senior FinOps Analyst at Jet. And we're doing this in collaboration with FinOut, right? So I guess the guys here, you know, Roy and Asaf, and the guys, they are going to give you some support if you have any product questions on the Q&A. But mostly, I guess they're here to provide us some very much needed, you know, like moral support. So thank you for that, guys. Appreciate it. So today, we know FinOps guys, anyone runs FinOps teams here? Yeah? All right. Good. So you know that we cannot do things by ourselves. We need the collaboration of stakeholders, senior leadership, we need engineers and whatnot. So it's how do we get the classic, how to get engineers to take action, however you want to call it. So today we'll discuss a framework that we have been putting into place for the last year into how to actually get that, right? So we created a new culture pillar, which we'll discuss. And we also implemented FinOut as our new sort of cloud cost management tool. And essentially, in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're taking data education and tons of humor. I think you'll see that in a bit, in order to generate awareness, engagement, and action, right, at scale, right? So we have an organization of 2,000 engineers, as you can see here. So that's a big part of what we created the culture pillar. And without any further ado, I'm going to give you a little bit of the flavor of what we're going to discuss today. Some essentials around who we are, why we're doing here, what we're saying here. We're going to see about the culture pillar. We're going to talk about FinOut and all that. Then we'll deep dive into the two main components of our framework. And finally, some takeaways around, you know, what have we achieved and where are we going next, right? So very simple, right? And without further ado, let's kick us off.
Thanks, Carlos. So let's start with our pillars. So we have our culture pillar, which is all about instilling habits. We have data, all about empowering engineers to see their spend data. Optimization, which is about controlling cloud spend and optimizing it. And finally, control. So this is about governance and anomaly mitigation. So that's our pillars, 4 of them in total. The focus today is on our culture pillar. So let's talk about a little bit about us then. So who are we? We are JustEatTakeaway.com, an online food delivery marketplace. In 2023, we processed nearly 900 million orders, connecting consumers to 730,000 partners across 19 different countries. We have a centralized FinOps team of 4 full-time employees, all based in the UK. And as Carlos mentioned, we recently decided to use FinOut as our cost management tool. We run a number of capabilities centrally, such as data ingestion, cost allocation, reporting, and analytics. But one of our biggest Achilles heel has been workload optimization. This is due to the structure of our organization. We have 2,000 engineers across 300 teams, multiple geolocations, all using different pipelines, with a historical focus on reliability rather than cost and efficiency. From this, we thought, let's spend some time and invest in a new capability called education and enablement. So FLOC. So why have we titled this, Let's Talk About FLOCs? So getting engineers to take action has been tried lots of times, not just in FinOps, but it's not always been a success. So we decided to look into nature to see if we can take any inspiration from it. And this is where the flocks of birds comes into play. So a flock is a form of social behaviors adopted by birds to survive by leveraging each other. So let's talk about what are the advantages of these, what are these really, and how can we translate these into FinOps? So flying in a slipstream. This is all about efficiency. So for FinOps, this is all about having a level playing field with shared best practices. Everyone sees the same data. Reliance on everyone to find food. So this is all about accountability. For FinOps, this is all about driving outcomes with accountability, so everyone understands their actions. Protection from predators, so risk mitigation. So risk management and sharing experiences. And then finally, exposure to potential mates. So this is all about community, building in a community, having that shared environment. Let's talk about our culture pillar. So let's start with, that's us in the middle, so that's the four of us, that's the FinOps team. Then we have our leadership team. There's about 10 of them, so that includes our CTO, their direct reports, and key stakeholders from finance and procurement. Then we have our 2,000 engineers. So as mentioned earlier, across 300 teams and multiple geolocations. So for each of these, we needed a different method of engagement. First, outbound broadcast, a way to reach the masses. 2, outbound reporting. How can we influence the leadership team? 3, outbound fine-tuning. So a way to drive specific outcomes. So for this, we're talking like workshops on specific topics. And then finally, an inbound support line. So a way for the community to ask us FinOps-related questions. For this, we use a Slack channel. The focus today is on the top 2, so outbound broadcast and outbound reporting. Okay. So we're missing the title of this one, but this is all about our tooling. So we have multiple data sources. So we have AWS, Datadog, GCP. And we take this data from our sources, from our data sources, from our cloud providers and SaaS providers, and we use a feature in FinOps called virtual tags. Virtual tags allows us to do our cost allocation, and it allows us to categorize our spend into categories that we care about. So this would be team, app, manager, department. Virtual tags are a key essential for the work that we do in FinOps at Jet, and a key input into our culture pillar. So now, slides. Oh, there's the title. So FinOps is the tool that we use. All right, now over to Carlos to talk about the outbound broadcast.
All right. Thanks, Hit. So let's discuss the first part of the framework, sort of the outbound broadcast. How do we get there? We call it the project heartbeat internally. So what it is essentially is, it's a direct comms line. How do we actually get that information out to 2,000 people? That's usually best practices. That's calls to action. That is, success stories as well, shared by the community, and tons of humor, as we will see in a little bit. And we decided, in order to mitigate the barriers to entry for people to read it, we decided to use an existing channel where engineers already go to get the information, which is our Jet product and technology blog. So we designed this to be sort of a newsletter, right, in a blog post format. Some essentials, again, audience, 2,000 engineers. We do this on a monthly cadence for now. I think that was the right pace in order to drive some momentum. And obviously, we have used our Slack channels to distribute and to let know when we publish something new. How it looks like. So, it's a combination, you'll see, of text, of graphs, and tons of memes. Again, we will see in a bit. Anyone likes memes here? Some of you? All right, so I think if that's what you like, then I think you like this one. Good. So let's talk about that. So first of all, this involves a lot of people time, right? So the culture pillar requires investment. So we want to make sure that we make the most of it. So not only is it important to choose what we talk about, but it's also the how, right? A lot of this framework is about the how. So how do we drive that engagement? And there's tons of, proven methodologies, literature out there. So we decided to use, we're going to talk about 6 sort of engagement methodologies. And we're going to see some examples of how we actually use that across this particular bit. So the first one, we call it social currency, right? This is the ability, you can see it as a benefit for our audience to have an open channel with 2,000, let's call it listeners, for them to showcase who they are, what they have achieved, and what not. It's a way to, also for people, managers, to give some recognition to their teams, right? So it's that sort of, let's call it mood, right? Then we have triggers. That is more something for us, the content admins. It's a way for to kind of use environmental cues, things that our audience is, you can say, constantly surrounded with in order to provide some indirect marketing, so we don't have to be beating the drum all the time, right? We have a concrete example of that. Then emotions. Humans are driven by emotions, in particular by high arousal emotions, no? Things like awe, humor, anxiety, even anger. Humans, I think, we go through tens of thousands of thoughts per day, and 80% of those, according to the research, are negative thoughts. So we decided to use the sort of the high arousal emotion of humor in order to counterattack a little bit this, especially because we spend so much time at work. And also you can see it as some sort of medicine, right? So life is, whatever. This gives me a little bit of that hump that I need today. Public, they say monkey see, monkey do. So it's much easier to replicate the success of others when you see something that actually works, as opposed to try to spend, invest, convince someone to invest time to sort of discover what can we do, right? So that's the whole point of this bit here. Practical value. Other than the obvious thing that if something has practical value, you want to see it because it's good for you. This is usually in social media. There tends to be that sort of social responsibility aspect when you share things that you think are of practical value for others. So it's a way for us to remind our kind of relationships, right, that we care about them, we're thinking about them, right? And finally, one of the oldest tricks in Hollywood of book authors is the stories, right? How can you actually sort of kind of facilitate true content engagement and assimilation by structuring something very simple, And usually it is putting something in a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? It's not really rocket science. I will see some examples of that, right? Good. So let's go with number one, social currency. For one particular newsletter, we decided to just simply make a collection of all the cost optimization initiatives that we were running at a given time. And we decided to publish sort of the top results, and it kind of looks something like this, right? So we give out exactly what are we talking about discussing, so sort of the title, what is this about? Who are the teams responsible? Very important. You can see how this is the bit of showcasing the results. Also, we put the amount of savings per the year. And finally, we use one of FinOps features, which is the dashboards that can give you that sort of near real-time data around, can you actually show me the actual impact of what you're doing, right? Obviously, we used a little bit of a ranked podium leveraging the spirit of the Paris Olympics. And it kind of end up like this, right? Simple one to begin with. Triggers. So this one is interesting. So we try to leverage our global campaign, branding campaign, which is, did somebody say Just Eat? Anyone here has heard of this before? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I need to speak to our global branding. Yeah, something, yeah, not working. But to be fair, we employees of Jet are constantly bombarded with this. So we have our email communications, it's on the building, it's on the walls, it's on the left, it's everywhere. So if you didn't know who Katy Perry or Snoop Dogg were, you definitely know now everything about their lives. So we kind of used this terminology to give a name to our newsletter, right? So we call it, did somebody say FinOps? And as you can see, we separated the word FinOps into 2 bits. So it even carries the musicality of the actual campaign, right? Because it's a musical campaign. In the hopes of creating a trigger when you're exposed to that, right? Emotions. So they say that an image drives more than 1,000 words, says more than 1,000 words, and also drives emotions, right? So I want to show you a couple of examples of how using a simple image can say much more than the equivalent in a text, right? So the first example is, if this works, maybe, there you go. So we need to use only team names that are compliant. The classic problem when trying to find tagging so we know exactly who's spending on what. What if we take, that's a very simple statement, very obvious for us, at least FinOps people. What if you compare that with the equivalent of using an actual meme that people know about, where you make some light fun of a team that actually, like they're doing the wrong job, right? It's very simple, right? And I think it goes deeper, so you kind of understand better what the problems are that we're facing, hopefully. Second one, we need to right-size our EC2 instances in order to optimize our cloud spend with the aim to reinvest in the business. Like beautiful, FinOps, perfect, by the book. So what if you take a very sort of big campaign in the UK, which was during the Brexit, where, we're saying, we're sending too much money to the European Union, can we just spend it on the NHS, which is the National Health System instead? What you twist it a little bit, and you say, we're sending too much money to AWS, right? Apologies to any AWS employees here. But yeah, so right size today, let's take back control. So that sort of messaging, right? Good. Public, this is an easy one. So we wanted to show one particular team that was achieving something very concrete in terms of cost avoidance, right? By using FinOps anomaly detection feature, right? And it's very simple, again, very structured. You start with using the feature, the cost anomaly was detected for a specific app, specific team, and a specific amount, right? This amount per day, which is actually 400% up for the day before. So something smells strange. Then you show the root cause uncovered. After doing some digging up, we actually discovered that we had some extra writing capacity on a DynamoDB table, and this was driving the excess app spend. And then, very importantly, when you talk about savings, you want to show the actual impact, whatever you do, right? So again, we use the same dashboards feature from FinOut to actually show that there was this huge thing that happened one day, and then suddenly, as we progress and discover the problem, we manage to get it back down, right? Again, monkey see, monkey do. We're trying to drive people to actually use more this feature. That's the whole point, right? So it kind of shows it works, right? Yes, using the anomaly detection. Thank you, guys. Good. And this is, again, another meme to try to explain people what an anomaly is, right? Sometimes, again, an image says more than 1,000 words, and we're trying to use the tsunami effect for this. Practical value, right? So this year, again, we introduced FinOut as our cloud cost management, and in order to sort of reduce the barriers to entry, we decided we want to do something concrete that engineers can actually go and implement from day one, right? So we prepared this sort of a step-by-step guide on how to set up your own cloud spend dashboard for your organization, for your team, for your division, depending on who you are, right? So we came up with you can say a standardized version of this. We created a matrix kind of dashboard. So you can see there's 4 rows and 3 columns. So the rows, they kind of, they talk about our virtual tags, so the things that we care about. So what do we want you to be looking at? You want to look at different apps. You want to look at your different teams. You want to look at different departments. And then based on those, on the columns, we have what you want, what's the story that we're trying to tell with each of these, right? We want to see things like, you want to get in the left-hand side, you can see how we want to get a feel. What is really driving your spend on that particular category. In case you didn't know, great. If you knew, it's just a way to keep tabs of that. And then the ones on the middle and the end is more about tracking the trends, right? Either on a monthly, daily basis, very simple. But again, it's just a way, I think what we created was a standard dashboard that engineers can just get, they clone, they change the configuration to your team, and voila, works, right? So that was the idea, practical value. Using dashboards feature from FinOut. Stories. So I want to share with you a couple of examples. I know you're tired of hearing my voice, but I'm sure you're going to go back to Hit very soon, to his more soothing voice. This is what we were told during the rehearsal. So, kind of we match a little bit that sense. So the first one is about how can we actually explain with a well-structured story why FinOps is important. Classic, right? So we decided we start with the idea, that you guys can go and spend anything you want on the cloud. You can build anything, but hey, viral spend, right? So the more you use, more you spend. So again, memes come to action. You have engineers who are full of, of excitement because we can build anything. But obviously, at the same time, which is a very typical example, senior leadership has no idea what's going on. And then shortly after, if this works, then you have finance getting the cloud bill, right? Having some sort of emotions behind that. And the same emotions translate back to the senior leadership who now, they know what's going on. So as kind of a very immediate reaction, you go and you freeze the budget. Boom, right? The reason why we used Arnold Schwarzenegger is because this is the meme. So I was thinking about Mr. Freeze for freezing the budget. So we had to find him again. And if you look on the internet, you can find. As you can find someone who's yelling, you can find someone who looks oblivious, right? By the way. Obviously, your engineers, they're sad because they cannot do anything. They're frozen. And even the worst thing, so the worst thing to end the story, is that they, who must not be named, our competitors, are actually winning over market share because we cannot innovate, right? Simple. That's the first story, right? As you can see, it has a setup, it has a middle, and it has an ending, right? So it's kind of structuring that message to try to land it to this sort of, to the folks who are busy folks, right? Second one, overcoming the challenge, right, is important, of putting easy-to right-sizing savings into context, right? Well, I guess in the FinOps community, we try to use GreenOps as that sort of part of our expertise that's going to help us to actually give the engineers what they need to care about and save the planet. But at the same time, you can use something with a cost. How can you actually put this more into context? What does this really mean? Again, in the spirit of keeping structure as a story, usually helps to think about extremes, right? So let's think about one option. How can we actually explain this? We can say, actually, we managed to save N% of our AWS bill, right? But N, rather small figure. So then you have your pessimistic engineer, right? Classic. You know what? No one cares. 2%, 1%. That maybe doesn't work. Let's go to the second one. This actually represents X million of dollars per year, right? For organization, for stakeholders, that's what it is. But then you have your skeptical engineer, right? You know what? It's all for you, evil shareholder. It's for my yacht, actually, right? We're driving something there. But maybe it doesn't work in any way. So let's try something else. This is the setup, by the way, right? So you want to start with that sort of extreme. Then you go to the next bit, which is, let's talk about beer, right? Completely off left. You cut them like, what is this going on, right? So, you have my attention. Let's deep dive. So we did a very simple, classic back of napkin exercise that entrepreneurs do when they come up with their great ideas for new businesses. So we said, a pint-sized kind of beer has this cost. With these savings, we can buy this many beers. With 2,000 engineers in Jet, we actually can have that amount of beers per engineer. But to be more concrete, we have actually managed to subsidize an ABC amount of pints per beer per sundowners per engineer for the entire year. For context, sundowners is our weekly informal get-together. So if you use that, it's like we have subsidized everything with everything you guys have done by just shutting down some machines, right? This is just the middle. So when you have this information, you can still, in the world of comedy, they call this as having a bubble that you can just then burst. So this is the part where you can actually get the engineers even more hyped about, right? So you start with a little setting. We are in an office, our Bristol office to be very specific. It's called the Broadkey House, Bristol. It's a small city in the UK in the southwest. And then someone asks, we're all working. So has anyone seen Yusuf? I need him to approve my pull request. Does anyone ring a bell, the name Yusuf this year? Maybe not. So Yusuf became a very iconic character during the Paris Olympics on the shooting competition because he seemed to be, very casual about it. When you had others using the little tools and stuff, he was just with one hand in his pocket, just shooting, right? So if you take that image and you put it inside an AWS data center, right? In front of the server racks, you say, you know what? Let sundowners begin. So it's a bit more, a bit of edgy. Again, any AWS folks here, we definitely put a little asterisk saying we are not encouraging at all like the destruction of third-party property, by the way. But just to be very clear about it. Yeah. Anyway, so this is our first part of the framework, and now I'm going to leave you with Hitesh is going to talk about the rest. This is the ending, obviously. All right.
Thanks, Carlos. So, as you can see, we have a lot of fun putting our heartbeat together. Now let's get on to the serious thing, how we influence our leadership. So this is our outbound reporting. And apologies, there's no memes in this. So our outbound reporting method is our cloud spend report. It's a way for us to have a direct line with our senior leadership team. And the format we use is a slide deck. So we use slide deck language as well. So lots of charts, lots of graphs, and high-level comments. We release it on a monthly cadence, and we release it via email. So again, showing that importance of it. We'll go through some of what we include in that in the next few slides. So the exec summary. So this is a high-level summary showing 3 key takeaways for any given month. So this is what we show. We show our cloud spend year-on-year by business unit. We use year-on-year rather than month-to-month due to the seasonality of our business. Then we show our cloud fitness. So this is a view of efficiency. We use a company-wide unit economics KPI called cost per thousand orders. So it just shows you what our efficiency looks like. And then finally, we show our cloud savings. So this is our year-to-date savings for both commitment and waste savings. So a simple slide, color-coded, showing the vital information the leadership team care about. If they don't have time to read anything else, this is the slide to read. Next, we go on to our deep dive sections. So if you do have time to spare, then please read on. So we go through the essentials. So this is where we show our spend and fitness in different data dimensions. So that could be business unit, team, by service, just highlighting those key areas. Then we show our savings, so a detailed view on the savings, so both for commitment and waste. Then the variances. So are we on track? How are we looking against forecast and budget? These are the operational side of things. And then we come on to the strategic areas. So this is an area for us to show hot topics. So this could be modernization initiatives, AI spend, or savings opportunities that we think are relevant. The next few slides will go on to one of the hot topics that we shared with the leadership team, which we call the IDLE EC2 challenge. So the leadership team were looking to save costs across all areas of the business. I'm sure we've all been in this situation, right? We need to save X amount of dollars, X%, whatever it is. So this gave us the opportunity to look at our waste savings opportunities, and we decided to focus on IDLE EC2s. We used AWS Trusted Advisor and a feature in FinOps called Data Explorer. This allowed us to create a report to show those wasteful resources by environment, by team, and the potential savings that were available to us. With the help of the leadership team and with this report, we were able to reduce the spend of the high-spending teams and also come away with 3 key takeaways. High availability. So what's the cost of that? What's the impact of that for us? Unallocated resources. So what's the impact for that for our cost allocation? And then what does a shared responsibility model look like for EKS? How does that fit within our organization? As Carlos mentioned, we shared the results with the masses in our heartbeat. So trying to bring it all back together. So now for some takeaways. And as mentioned in the keynote, the pun is intended. So is it working? What does our ROI look like? What metrics can we use to measure this? So let's start with the simple stuff, awareness. Once it works. So we've had some negative comments, so not everyone likes memes, but the majority of the comments have been really positive. And we can see that more people are reading our heartbeat rather than technical blog posts at Jet. So that's great. What about FinOps? Are people using it? So we can see that 500 users have been created, which is amazing. We have 130 weekly active users. So again, that's just mind-blowing. And we have 150 dashboards. So around 50% of our teams have dashboards. So that's a massive uptick on the tool that we were previously using. And then finally, what about the hard, cold numbers? What do they look like? So we can see more people are talking about FinOps. We're getting more questions into our support channel. And we've seen some impact in the savings as well. So we've seen a massive reduction in our waste. Okay, now back to Carlos to go over how the outbound broadcast and outbound report complement each other.
All right. So let's put all of this together, and this is what will be the title presentation, Designing a Vlog. So this is what we think maybe designing a vlog looks like. So we start with the reaching the masses, the driving the momentum through that initial newsletter that we discussed just now. And it has the classic steps where you start driving awareness. Hey, this is FinOps, this is why it's important, this is what you can do, these are the best practices. Hopefully some of that sticks and you drive some education, right? So now we know, what it says, what we can do about it. And hopefully the education then drives some actions. Right? Fine. Okay. Now we know what to do. We have seen what we can do. This is those actions. So we can actually, hopefully, using things like a dashboard feature from FinOut, look at those results. Right? So actually, it is happening. And then we, as content admins, we take those results and we put them back into the thing. Right? So you can look at this as some sort of a virtuous cycle. Right? In order to drive, if this works again. There you go, habits, yes, habits for the engineers. Slowly getting there. And those awareness that you have in the second round, now instead of just being what FinOps says and what can we do, is actually, hey, this is what we're actually doing, right? These are the results that we're driving. Right? So it kind of reinforces itself. That's the first bit. Then you go and you want to accelerate some of that execution through influencing leadership, right? Which is the bit that Hitesh was discussing just now. So we take some of that initial results, and we provide the classic 10,000 feet view assessment for senior leadership. Hey, this is the situation, these are the risks that we find, these are, any sort of escalations required, here it is. And hopefully that drives some decisions, right? They get paid the big bucks for that, then you make the decision. And hopefully those decisions, again, help you to drive further action, right? You can take picture, but I think the picture you can wait for a little more clicks. But yeah, just in case, yeah. So you can see this kind of works as the classic sort of flywheel. And then with the heartbeat, sort of the newsletter having that sort of pull mechanism, trying to get engineers to do something, and using a combination of the push mechanism that provides that sort of a more decision-making from senior leadership by using the monthly report. And now that we have this thing rolling, so hopefully we are gradually building those flock-like behaviors that we discussed before, right? So on the education side, now you have, level playing field, we're being efficient, like the flock of birds. Not everyone knows exactly what to do. Everyone has access to the same information, at least, right? Then you drive those actions, and you get that sense of accountability. You start seeing that this change comes from you, right? It's not the senior leadership that's going to go and turn off something, right? It's you that need to do the work, so you feel accountable. You understand that it's your responsibility, which is what we're trying to get. Those results, again, learning by others, risk mitigation just by monkey see, monkey do, just replying what has worked, and let's just go and get it. And finally, the awareness, again, is exposure to the community, right? So you are actually able to build those relationships with other folks that you haven't really worked before, just because we have this sort of common thread, which is FinOps, right? And this goes, I think this ties back to finding potential mates on the flocks. Again, this is not a way for you to, we're not encouraging you to get overly acquainted with your colleagues, right? It's just, it's a community, right? So now you can take the picture. this is the right moment. Good. All right. So last one, I swear. We're almost there. So what's next, right? So we have now kind of created this little flywheel that has some momentum. And we don't know we're still thinking what we want to do with it. In particular, we want to reduce the frequency because it is a heavy sort of FTE investment. Do we want to continue? That is still for us to be, do we want to change the format? Are we going to go into something like video? You know, we still don't know exactly what this is, but we know that we have a flywheel, right? So what we definitely want to do is sort of explore ways to reinforce the impact of that little thing that is running. So can we actually use data? Now we have FinOut as our new cloud cost management tool. We also complement with using Wiz. We run some policies on Wiz to get some further sources of information. Can we use all that data to gamify a little bit and increase that sense of accountability that we have been discussing before, right? Some thoughts. Widening the scope. So far, my team has been focused around AWS. Right? That's where we have the vast majority of our spend. At the same time, I've been in this company for 15 months, and I have seen things like GCP and Datadog taking over in terms of being like critical, right, for the work that we do. We're investing more and more, so why don't we just use this thing that we have and try to implement the same sort of FinOps motions with GCP and Datadog, which is something that, again, FinOut can provide because that's why we explain that multiple sources of data ingestion at the beginning. And also, reframing success. This one is super important. Senior leadership has been classic, and I'm sure this happens in a lot of companies, focus on how much can we save? What are we saving? What's the amount of dollars? Like that sort of thing, right? So we've managed with this initial year, I think we've managed to convince senior leadership to look into what we call the cost per 1,000 orders, right? So the unit economics bit. Now we have some common understanding. It is official OKR for us, so now it's easier to sort of, we have some direction. Before we were exploring, it looks like now we can have a bit more understanding, right? So one part of that has been this. The other part is, can we actually maybe make use of things like budgets, for example? We don't use budgets, no teams use budgets, but can we use a virtual budget to generate a sense of awareness, of urgency, right? So we can create, and actually FinOut has a feature that has come out recently, which is called financial plans, that allows you to or create it's called the trend-based forecast, and then from those forecasts you can create some budgets, and obviously from those budgets you can compare them with your forecasted end-of-month spend, for example. So that's something that we are toying with to generate even more accountability, urgency, and whatnot. Right? So that is it. Next year, let's see. And the more we do this, I guess we can have the relative impact of our flock goes a bit up, right? So hopefully that's what we're trying to do. Again, we don't know what we're going to do with the actual flock itself, but definitely all these other factors help us to go more to the green in our flockometer. Right? Yeah, very good. So that is it. This is our QR codes, if you're interested on connecting with us. And I think very important, just to close off, is that I guess we are not looking for perfection at the moment, but rather finding that we are moving in the right direction. I think that's the main message that I guess we want to convey with this. And thank you very much for putting up with us for 40 minutes, really. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for the presentation. I thought that the idea of merging this like a very advanced communication technique super interesting to FinOps. But I'm curious to hear from you like the resource that you put as a team to produce the reports and to be that level of creativity and to how much time you actually take to build that on a weekly basis, something like that. Do you have a dedicated person? Is it you, Carlos, or?
Well.
You talk about the heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. So I do the heartbeat, and we as a team we gather so the heartbeat is released at the end of the month, right? That's our goal always. And at the beginning of the month, we gather as a team. We started doing that, I think, maybe after the second or third one, to sort of decide what it's going to look like, right? What sort of engagement of those 6 engagement, which are the ones we're going to go for, and we also talk about the content. So it's all about what content and how we present. And I think that is roughly how we've been working on it. It definitely takes a lot of time, if that's your second question. I did a recent exercise with my team, so like, let's see what are we spending our time on. Hitesh time on this monthly report came like pretty high, and for me it was the heartbeats, right? So we decided, okay, is this really worth it? Are we going in the right direction? So we decided to, let's invest on this year, and then next year we'll see. But that's, yeah.
All right, Jackie.
Hi, Carlos. Hi, Hitesh.
Hey, you're right.
Jackie Wilson, Old Mitchell, South Africa. Just a question on the dashboards that you've created. How many have you, percentage-wise, created for the company and the standard versus them customizing their own? And are you checking them?
That's a really good question. So like as Carlos mentioned, we created that standard dashboard which everyone could copy and use. Most teams have customized them to whatever views they need to see. So most teams will care about their own individual spend, and they'll go, right, I care about this particular feature or this particular service. So most have customized them, but that standard dashboard was just to give them a template of, this is what you can do. Do we care that they've customized them? Not really, but we will go back to them and say, hey, look, does this work for you? Do you need any help to create anything else? But yeah, a lot have started to customize themselves and gone, actually, I care about this particular spend or this particular area.
Cool.
And we definitely have a look into that. We want to see exactly what's happening, right? So what are engineers actually doing? And because ideally we want to have a situation where we create the virtual tags that the company cares about, right? So we want to avoid engineers going into the raw metadata and getting that back. And we have seen that, right? So it's just been looking at what they really want to know. It helps us to think, okay, what's next for the virtual tags? How can we actually, modify them to actually ensure that we're not going down the octopus tentacles down to the AWS data, if that makes sense.
Cool.
Brennan Fischel, United Health Group. You talked about gamification in terms of what's coming next. Have you guys thought about ways in which to interact with your senior leadership to provide potentially incentives around that gamification for teams that are doing things well?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the virtual tags that we have, and we haven't used it much, is kind of department virtual tag. So the department virtual tag pretty much lines up to one person in the CTO's team, right? So ideally, with the gamification, it's going to allow us to think how we want to use the data to, incentivize engineers, but at the same time, we want to use it as a report to senior leadership to see, hey, this is the state of the play today, and we have been actually discussing with CTO Mert. He said, you know what, I want you to give me tools that I can go back to my team and say, hey, you, Mr. A or Mr. B, look at this, right? Make it happen. And I think we're going to start using more and more that sort of department virtual tag. So, yeah.
Carlos mentioned about the financial plan, so that's the other piece that we're sort of looking at. So we could either do a top-down approach or a bottom-up, and that top-down approach will be looking at departments. So like Carlos mentioned, those directs to the CTOs, they can look at what their budgets, what their forecasts are, and what their projections look like, and then they can start to use that to influence their team. So we're not there yet, but that's the sort of areas that we're looking at.
Hi guys, great presentation. A quick question, do you measure like footfall on your dashboards? Like how many people are viewing them and on what kind of cadence? Because I think a lot of engineering orgs tend to find like engineers push back on yet another dashboard and they want, single pane of glass for all of their operational data and all their cost data in one place. Like how do you see that working?
So we've started with the help from FinOps, started to get some usage metrics. We're not looking at individual dashboards yet, but we're looking at what the overall usage of FinOut looks like. So we can see how many people are using it, how many, like we show, and the weekly active users. So that's where we're starting with. I think we're starting to get into the deeper detail once we get an understanding of where we want to take this. But yeah, it's one of those things which is for next year.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, everybody, let's give Carlos and Hit a big round of applause. Thank you. Excellent.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. I hope you enjoy this video as much as I enjoy sharing all of these amazing FinOps stories, best practices, and expertise. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave comments and questions for our speakers. Check out more FinOps X content on our YouTube channel. We appreciate the support.